Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Nine years ago, on the 23rd of December, I was traveling from Numazu in Shizuoka back to Tokyo. Back in those days, I had a motorbike. It was night and 2 a.m. was fast approaching. I was heading down south on some narrow and winding roads. I was behind a car and I had been behind it for a little while. We were now entering forest roads. Again, there were many curves and bends, and the car in front rounded a curve and disappeared right before my eyes. I noticed this because I had been using the car in front's headlights to help guide my way. My bike didn't have the same kind of lamplight as a car, and my lights were quite dark in comparison. It was so abrupt that I stopped to see if there was a side road that the car pulled into, but there wasn't one. It was really weird. Cars don't just disappear into thin air. I got back on my bike and sped off feeling pretty creeped out. And as soon as I was back on my way home, I noticed something strange. "I keep going around this corner." I actually said the words out loud. I just kept going around the left corner. I don't know how many times I did it before I started counting. I counted 8 laps of the same corner, and I was seeing the same scenery, the same trees and bushes in the neighboring forest, and I wanted to get out of the woods. It was disturbing. Then suddenly, the road straightened out, and I kept driving, but I felt like I was on the verge of losing my mind. I couldn't possibly fathom what had just happened. Everything I knew about the reality had just been questioned. I saw lights up ahead, the city lights of Atami. I knew that this simply couldn't be. There was no way that I could be this far away from my original route. And my whole body was shaking, and it felt stiff. Just in case you are unaware, Atami is on the other side of the country, and it's on the opposite coast. It's a good 40 minutes away. A police officer flagged me down as I was passing through. I really just wanted to get home. I didn't want to stop at all, but I was forced to. He was an officer. The first thing he said to me was, "How was it?" How the hell did he know what just happened? I wondered. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Either way, I wanted to get the hell out of this town and away from the police officer. I hit the road with full throttle, and if you would have seen me on the road, you would have seen that my face was likely a frightening shade of pale. But the thing is, I don't think anyone saw me on the road that night. I was so weirded out that I pulled into the car park of a nearby hotel and pressed the buzzer at the front desk. I was in downtown at this point. How long had I been riding? Not nearly enough time to be where I was. It was horrifying. A quick look at my watch told me that it was after 6 a.m. at this point. I panicked, and I wondered if I had somehow passed out or blacked out, but now was not the time to try and rationalize that missing period of time. I needed something stable, something real. I needed to see someone normal. I felt as if I was in a different world, like some kind of plane of non-existence. But as soon as I heard the audible sound of the buzzer, something changed. It was as if the world shifted and latched back onto the normal, that almost boring world we live in, the mundane. There is safety and reassurance in the mundane, and sometimes we collectively don't realize that there is. The ordinary can be incredibly comforting. Take my word for it. I spoke to the owner of the hotel about my experience, and she and her husband both confirmed that this sort of thing isn't something rare. Some people turn up at her place saying that the last thing that they remember is the power went out in their home, and then they were in the area nearby like me. After I got back home and took some time to process everything, I understood that when I opened my GPS map, the route I thought I took wasn't appearing on the map. It was so weird, because I remember going into a convenience store kind of close to the turnoff that I took. And even though it happened 9 years ago, I still don't have an explanation for it.
Okay, so this happened earlier today. I work at a farmer's market and the booth I run is the very last one at the end of the street near the entrance/exits. People can enter the market from either end, but the block that the market's on is oddly shaped, meaning that it would take about 10 minutes to walk from one market entrance to the other without going through it. So business is going pretty slowly, and this lady walks into the market and comes up to the booth with her dog, small, scruffy, and white with a brown patch on its left shoulder. Now, this isn't uncommon in, or of itself, since maybe 1 in 5 people at the market bring their dogs. But this particular woman stood out because she just came up and looked at our display for a couple of seconds, didn't answer or even look up when I greeted her or when I asked her dog's name, and then walked off towards the rest of the market. Her dog tried tugging her towards one of the other booths, but she just kept walking. There was another customer in between, but no more than 2 minutes later, the same woman comes up to my booth from the same direction she did before. There's no way she could have had time to walk all the way through the market and around the block, and I would have seen her if she turned around and gone in a circle, though I don't know why she would. And the dog was identical too. To make it even weirder, when I talked to her this time, she was very cheerful and animated. She didn't seem confused when I asked her the same questions as the previous time. She was happy to chat as she decided what she wanted to buy. She said her dog's name is Wesley and he's a 6-year-old terrier. After she bought something, she said goodbye and walked off into the market. Her dog tried to pull her over towards the same booth it did before, but this time, she went over and looked at what he was trying to get to, a display of pet treats made by a fishing business, before walking away. I've been thinking about this for hours. Anyone have an idea about what might have happened?
A few years back, I went to a festival in Hachioji. It was summer and I was with 3 friends. We had a really great night out. We took in the night markets and enjoyed the street food, but it was late and we were all ready to head home. It was a hot and humid night, so we decided to pop into Starbucks. We figured it would be a great way to grab a cold drink and escape the mass of foot traffic heading to the station. From where I sat, I could see the counter clearly. I was chatting with my friends about the festival, and in the intervals in our conversation, I naturally glanced towards the counter as it was right there in front of me. I saw a guy wearing a long jacket that stood there at the counter. He looked like he was waiting for his drink to be prepared. I think he caught my eye because he was wearing a long jacket and we were in the height of summer. I was half listening to my friends but keeping an eye on this guy. It looked as if he was talking to the woman behind the counter preparing the drinks. I thought that they were friends at first, but then I realized that the woman behind the counter was ignoring the man. She just went about her work in silence and apparent ignorance of the man at the counter. I thought that it looked a little weird, and I wondered if he was bothering her or even harassing the staff member, and I just kept watching. I don't know why, but the guy in the jacket suddenly lunged his upper body over the counter towards the woman. He was rummaging around for something, and I could hear the sound of it. I didn't know what the hell he was thinking. It looked like he was searching for something. But the woman behind the counter didn't seem to notice that anything had happened. I watched all of this unfold with an uncomfortable feeling in the pit of my stomach. Something seemed so wrong. And after he rummaged around over the counter, he returned to the spot he stood in before the counter. I watched, and it still seemed like the barista didn't acknowledge his existence. He continued speaking to her, and she continued her work without hearing. I couldn't help but watch. But suddenly, the man in the long jacket turned to face me and looked me square in the eyes. He looked shocked and surprised. You know the look of someone being caught doing something that they shouldn't do? It was like that. In that instant, something happened. Everything around me suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had hit the pause button on TV. There was a clear and audible sound. I don't know how to explain it best, but this is what it sounded like to me. It sounded like ice cubes were dropped into a glass. You know that clanking sound of ice rolling around in a glass? Then as soon as I heard that sound, all the natural diegetic sounds around me returned. And as soon as I heard the sound of ice tumbling into the glass, it was like someone had unpaused my life. I instantly looked towards the counter as it was right in front of me, and the guy in the jacket was gone. I looked at my friends, and they were still talking as if I hadn't just zoned out. I asked my friends if they had just seen what I had seen. Well, I asked them if they had seen someone acting weird by the counter, and they said that they didn't. I don't know what the hell that was, but it remains a mystery to me. I wonder why he was bothering the barista, and I have seen other things like this in my life, but nothing recently. Not since that man noticed me looking at him.
I really don't know if there is any science to explain this, but I know people here point out logical conclusions first, so I think this is the right place to post it. A couple of weeks ago, me, my family, and another family went on a trip to a rural place in Bavaria for a couple of days. We rented these houses, one for each family, that were on this hill facing the woods and mountains. It was a beautiful place. Our houses were a little far away from each other, about a 3-minute walk. The entire place looked like a little neighborhood of its own. Sometimes my mom would send me or my siblings over to our friend's house to get or return stuff. On our first evening there, I went over at around 9 p.m. and gave them whatever I had to give them. When I started walking back, I stood there for a second because the sun was setting and it looked beautiful. I have a picture of the view. I was a little jealous because our friend's balcony was facing the sunset and looked back at our house, which was almost completely dark already. I thought, tomorrow I will go back to our friend's house and watch the sunset with them. I went back home, and as I was entering, my siblings were walking out to go to our friends. I told them to look at the sunset when they are there, and they did. The next day, around the same time, we ate at the friend's house, and I was so excited to show my parents the view, but to my shock, the sun just wasn't there. Like, not even a little bit. I looked over to my siblings and said, "Guys, the sun isn't setting on this side today." And they got as confused as me. I walk out the house and see that now that the sun is setting on our side. I thought, okay, let's see what will happen the next day. The sun kept setting at this new spot from that day on until our trip was over. I have no idea why it changed, and I am glad I showed it to my siblings so I wasn't the only one who saw it. Also, the picture is still there. I just regret not taking a pic of the night I saw it on the other side. Side note, I know nothing about cardinal points, so sadly I have no idea if the sun was setting on the west. But still, why would it change at all?
I've never had a glitch experience before this, so the experience is really crazy for me. I work on a team that tends to come much earlier to work, 2 to 3 hours before most of the company. Because of this, it's very easy to spot all of our cars in the parking lot in the early morning. And we all have our favorite spots to park. One of my coworkers has a car that no one else that I've seen has in the company. It's a Cadillac of some type. I'm sorry, I don't know car models that well. Anyway, he's been here for a year and I've gotten a ride from him twice, and I know where he parks because of the above details. One morning I come in, and his red car is now silver or gray, literally overnight. It's just too quick for him to have gotten it painted. He's never talked about getting it painted, and he has a newborn at home. So I doubt painting his car is the last thing on his mind. Unless he has a secret car wrapping business and quietly changed his car color and hoped no one would notice. I don't know how it would happen so quickly. Well, anyway, I know what you're thinking. Did you ask him? No, I didn't want to seem like a lunatic if he said that it had always been gray, so I decided to let it go. About a month goes by and I joke to myself, what if it turns blue next? Thinking a second change would be impossible. Now, guess whose car is now basically black? Yep, same car, different color overnight. For the record, the first time I saw his car as gray or silver, it was still dark out. And when I saw this new dark gray color, the sun was already up, and I literally thought it was black at first. I had to go up to it because I couldn't believe it, before I realized it is just a very dark gray. If this color change was just lighting, I should have thought it was darker the first time. Also, at certain angles, the color still looks like a dusty black. It's super weird, and there's no way that I'm bringing it up now, because he definitely didn't paint it twice in 4 to 5 weeks. Also, there is nobody with that type of car at my company, and it is definitely his in his spot. If it ever does turn blue, I'll post again. My 3 best friends and I began hanging out pretty much every day, beginning our senior year of high school. For the purposes of the story, I will refer to my 3 friends as K, H, and C. We live in a typical suburban neighborhood. We would also hang out at K's house nearly every day after school, and always hung out consistently during college breaks and such. So, we were driving on K Street a lot. Since we began hanging out, whenever we drove onto K Street, I always saw the white house that was on the right-hand side when you first turn in. We never talked about the house, but just like anyone notes their surroundings, I had that white house ingrained in my head as part of the street. During our sophomore year of college, we were all home on a break. C and I were driving to K's house, and I turned onto the street and immediately noticed that something was off. There was no white house. C had the same realization at the same time, and having never talked about the white house prior, we both said at the same time that the white house was gone. When we got inside K's house, we told her that the white house was gone and she was incredibly confused. She asked us what we were talking about and we explained, and she said that no white house had ever been there. She and her parents insisted that we were just confused because trees were cut down. Yes, trees were cut down. But more importantly, the White House was completely gone. They had no clue what we were talking about and even showed us old pictures to prove that the White House was never there. H soon arrived, and we explained the whole situation, and he remembered the White House too. To this day, C, H, and I have no idea what happened to the White House on the street, and K, her parents and neighbors insist that it was never there. This story isn't too terribly eventful, but it's still one of those stories that comes up between my mother and I because of how weird it was. This happened somewhere around a year ago, back when I was still 17. My mother and I were driving around on a Saturday, doing various errands and all, when my mom says that she wants to stop and get coffee. We head to the nearest Starbucks and decide to go into to get our coffee. It was a nice day out, so why not? We get in and order, and my mom goes to pay with her phone, but then realizes that she left it in the car and that she has to go get it. I tell her not to worry, that I have the app on my phone too. I pay for our coffee, I get a free one, no big deal, and everything goes like normal. We go sit down and wait for a few moments. They called my name and I went up to the counter to get the drinks. When I noticed that my drink was incorrect, I informed the barista and he apologizes and says that he will remake it really quick. I agree, and I decide that I'm going to stay up at the counter while he does so that I don't have to go sit back down and come back up. I motioned to my mom from across the Starbucks that it will be another moment, and she looks like she understands. Then after a couple seconds, I feel my phone vibrate in my pocket, and I pull out and it says that my mom is calling me. I glance up to look over, and my mom is sitting at the table, cleaning her glasses. I look back at my phone, and yep, it definitely says that the person calling me is my mother. I kind of laughed at first, thinking she must have pocket dialed me, so I decided that I'm going to answer it. I swipe and put it up to my ear, expecting to hear rustling and the ambience of Starbucks. But when I answer, it sounds like someone is crunching paper in front of the microphone. I could hear a strange sound in the background of the static. It was kind of like that tone you get when you turn a radio dial really slow and the channels that are out of range try to fade in and out. That really strange high-pitched sound. I was genuinely confused. I said hello to see if somehow my phone had picked up someone else's call or something. And after a few more seconds of static, I could hear the voice come in a bit clearer. But the only thing I heard it say was, "Do you want to get coffee?" It almost sounded like the conversation we had just before we decided to get Starbucks, like it was recorded and being played back into my ear through a radio or a tape player or something like that. And after a couple more seconds, the call just sort of fades out and then ends. I stare at my phone in confusion, but in the end, I just shove it in my pocket and grab our drinks. I get back to the table and I mention to my mom that I think she somehow pocket dialed me. And she then reminds me that she left her phone in the car and that's why I had to pay, something that I had somehow immediately forgotten. This just made the whole situation weirder. I show her my recent calls and it shows that I did in fact receive a call from her and it lasted 46 seconds. We take our coffee and head out to the car. And lo and behold, her phone is sitting on her dash clip in plain view. She checks it, and when we get in, and much to both of our surprise, her recent call shows that her phone did have an outbound call to my phone at the same time. There was no one else in the car. Her doors were locked, and there was no way someone would have broken in, grabbed her phone, called me, played back a recorded conversation, then hung up and locked the doors again. Honestly, neither of us have any explanation as to how this happened, but part of me thinks it was some sort of alternate dimension or alternate timeline call, one where I hadn't gone with her to run errands, and she called me asking if I wanted to get coffee. This actually took place about a month ago now, and my friends all still confirm that it wasn't a joke at all, and none of them knew beforehand. This just happened yesterday, and I remember this Reddit group and thought it would be interesting to share, and to see if anyone else can possibly explain some other way she would have known. For background, I'm 19 and male, and had a sleepover on Saturday with my group of friends. For the sake of the story, let's call them C, 21 and non-binary, A, 19 and non-binary, and D, 19 and female. Our other friend, H, who was 17 and female, was meant to spend the night as well, but changed her mind after a stressful week. The plan was, I would wake up Saturday morning to go to a college open house at my college campus with H, who is currently in her tour process. And after the tour, we would come home and C, A, and D would arrive. We would all be dyeing our hair and play some games like Mario Party and One Night Werewolf. We really like playing games all together like this. C was planning on getting drunk, which we all thought would be fun to witness. And after H had already gone home with her new hairdo, I had elected to cut my hair into more of a shag, and I was helping D bleach her hair. We were all laughing as C had just finished attempting to shotgun a can of hard seltzer. The keyword is attempt. It got all over my bathroom mirror and walls instead. And A was playing music for us all. But then, D suddenly called me Philip. There are 3 things to know as to why her calling me Philip was very strange. Number 1, my name is not and has never been Philip, not even closely related to it either. Number 2, I'm female to male transgender, and my legal name is nowhere close to Philip, and neither is my actual name. Number 3, my mom was going to name me Philip had I been born assigned male. I froze and said, "How the hell did you know that?" She said, "Know what?" I laughed and said, "No, seriously, when did my mom tell you that? And when did you come up with the idea for this joke? It's a good one though. You spooked me for a second there." And she answered, "I don't know what you're talking about. I just think you give Philip vibes. That's it." I explained to my friends that my mom had wanted to name my older brother Philip, but his dad objected, and so she saved it for her next kid. When I came out and the doctors declared me female, she scrapped Philip, and her and my dad came up with something else relating to a movie character that my mom admired. My friends all confirmed that my mom hadn't mentioned it at any point that day or prior. Normally, I would think they were pulling my leg, but even my mom confirmed and pointed out, "Why would I even bring that up with them?" given that even my severely drunk friend, C, was dead serious. I want to let you know that C is a friend who can't hold water without immediately losing it when drunk. We can't even make eye contact without a "don't look at me" and an eruption of giggles. I'm inclined to trust them. Plus, after how freaked out I looked, they would have spilled the beans by now. Dee swears that she doesn't know how she knew about it. She just had this feeling that I had Philip vibes. Or should have been a Philip. Does anyone have any other ideas? 'Cause I'm at a loss, and I'm becoming convinced that this was some sort of glitch in the Matrix, or a case of morphic resonance fields, or something. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.